welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship.
Hello and welcome back to the Love How Deep podcast. It's so great to have you along for the ride, and I am back in the saddle again with my co-host Heather.
Hey everybody.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I know it's been a little bit. We've taken a little bit of a pause from the podcast.
I know, I've missed it.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we haven't been feeling too well, you and I.
Yeah.
I can actually tell I've still got a little bit of congestion. You sound better than I do.
Oh, well, that's good because I don't think I feel that way. But hey, let's roll with it. Let's do this.
Yeah. And then another thing, we're trying to get this episode recorded before a pretty big storm comes in. We keep seeing it on the radar, and I'm hoping that it's going to pass through and we're not going to lose electric and we can get this in.
Yeah. So let's get started.
All right. So what we're calling this episode is Supporting Your Spouse During Stressful Times. And I'm sure that you can all relate. I'm sure if you've been together any length of time, you've probably had some stressors come up in your relationship. And so we really think it's an important thing to talk about, especially at the recording of this episode. We're doing it right after the holidays. And so, of course, the holidays often create more stress, even though you would think that it would be a joyful, happy time. But a lot of times
that's what we want it to be.
Yeah.
But sometimes we get stressed out.
That's right.
Yeah.
And really, the important thing in here is the support. That's what we really want to focus on, is the support. And so, but before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about stress and what it is and what we're talking about.
Right. So specifically, we're going to talk about external stressors, not the stress that you and your spouse might cause each other, because we know you're working on that too, right? Right. But we're talking...
That never happens.
No, Brian, you never stress me out. Said no one ever. But we're talking about things like your job. You might love your job, but there might be some things about your job that stress you out completely. And you're just like, okay, why am I doing this? And, you know, if you're like us, like anyone else, you bring that stress home, and then that interferes with your relationship with each other and with your children, with your friends, because that stress is at the forefront of your mind. So it could be that you do have a stressful job. It could be finances that are stressing you out. Maybe, you know, it's a mountain of debt or something that you're still trying to work through, or your car just broke down. We've had that happen before too. You know, we've experienced a time when, Brian, when you were in the corporate world, doing insurance and all that jazz, like you went from one job to another, one department to another within the same job, always dealing with this stress that you were bringing home to me, to our daughter. You know, it wasn't a purposeful thing, but I mean, that happens. And so how do I support you through that? And, you know, other than, you know, roll my eyes and just say, dude, get over it. Like, everybody has a stressful job. Because that's what we say, isn't it? That's what we think. Like, dude, everybody's stressed at times. Get over it. Like, just, give it to God. Just pray about it. You know, all the Christian lingo too, but it's there, you know, it's there.
Right. You did a very good job of kind of talking me through this. I remember there were several occasions where I would call you on the phone during the day, and I don't even remember if it must have been during the summer, because I wouldn't have been able to get a hold of you during the school year since you're a teacher, but I would call you in the summertime and just be exasperated sometimes about what was going on. And you were just so patient and so supportive. I mean, it really just helped me, I think, be able to navigate and get through some pretty, stressful situations for sure. And I mean, you've had, you know, obviously with your health, I think you've had some pretty stressful issues. You had breast cancer when we first started dating.
Yeah.
That was a very stressful time. I hope I did a good job supporting you. You
did. I mean, you were incredible. Even though we were dating, you supported me 100%. So yes, you did. Good. You did. Yeah. Remember when right after we got married, I went back to school, quit my job and went back to school. So we had income of, you know, not much. And I remember at one point during that time, you were like, so just want to let you know, we only have $88 left in the bank. I don't get paid for 2 weeks. It
Yeah.
was like, whoa. I mean, no pressure on me. I wasn't working, but it was like,
Mm-hmm.
there's that financial stress because I'm at school and then I'm also dealing. So I've got that on my mind. I've got, upcoming projects and assignments on my mind and studying on my mind and tests that I have to take. Just like there's a lot of stress in that. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember um, one day, like, well, really many times on a Sunday morning, I was like up at 7 a.m. doing homework instead of getting ready to go to church with you and with our daughter. And like, you came down and you're like, are you going to come to church with us? And I'm like, I can't. I'm too stressed out. I have got to get this done. And it was like the stress of the work from the workload of school weighed so heavy on me. It just overshadowed everything, even being
Mm-hmm.
able to go to the house of God and worship together as a family and just grow closer to God. It was, yeah. And you were amazing. You would come over and you'd rub my shoulders and say, "What can I get for you? Can I have a cup of tea? Can I, how can I, what can I do? How can I help? And can you proofread my assignment for me?" Like, those are just little ways that just meant the most to me and impacted me and helped me through it. And I remember even our daughter was just like, "I'll cook dinner tonight." Like, I mean, it's just those little things because of all the stress, external stressors.
Right. I think
Yeah.
it's all about what I'm hearing you say is just as a family, you got to try to pitch in as much as you can
Oh
when,
man,
and
yeah.
I'm sure again, if you've been in a family for any length of time, there's going to be different stressors at different times for different family members. And so the idea here is let's everybody pitch in to help the person that's stressed out as much as you can.
Yeah.
I think is the point there because
Yeah, definitely.
there can be a huge impact, a huge toll, right? I mean,
Right.
on
Absolutely.
individuals and in the family.
Right, because I mean as you the person is under that much stress that it's interfering with everything that you do, like you can't even get dinner on the table, maybe you can't even sleep at night, maybe you are working as well and like that's not going well. It interferes, like you bring it home and it does interfere with your family and you tend to project on them. You don't mean it, but you tend to project on them and it's kind of an unfair thing
Hmm.
for them to experience, and everything that's small turns into something that's really, really large,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
It's a mountain out of a molehill thing.
That's true. And so, what we're going to do now is we're going to actually give you some help here. So, we're going to talk about 6 strategies. Is that right? Do we have six? I think.
We have
Yeah.
5.
Well, five. I think well, maybe we'll give you some bonus here, but we'll call it five for
Carry
now.
on.
The first one I want to talk about is active listening. I know this, to some of you, this might sound like a basic kind of communication tool, but it is extremely important. And what do we mean by active listening? I don't know. Do you want to share what that is?
So if you are actively listening, then you are hearing what your spouse says and you're able to repeat back what is stressing them out in your own words. So not verbatim. That's not active listening. That's just memorizing what they're saying and just spitting it back to them. You want to put it in your own words. Like you have probably heard Brian say, even in this episode, "So what I hear you saying is," and that's
That's right. I did do that
you
earlier.
did.
I
You
remember
did.
that
Good
now.
job, Brian. Gold star. um, so you want to ask that, or say that kind of phrase, just incorporate that to the way that you speak with each other, that you're really listening. And then you say, "Okay, so what I think you're saying is," and then put it back to them in your own words. This allows them, your spouse, to know that they have been heard. So if Brian says that to me and he's got it right, then I can say, "Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I mean." And I know that he has truly heard me to my core. He's not just checked out, because how many of us do that? We're just like, "Oh, here we go again with this other problem." And we kind of check out. We're halfway listening. We're on our phones. We're listening to the radio, thinking about what's for dinner. What do I need to pick up at the grocery store or whatever? It's like, no, you're fully engaging in that active listening with your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another part to that is asking questions.
Hmm.
You know, uh, one of my favorite, I guess maybe it's not really a question, it's sort of a request is, can you tell me more about that?
That's a
So,
good question.
yeah,
Yep.
like if Heather, if you're telling me about your back pain, can you tell me a little bit more about that? What's that like for you? What's that doing to you? I mean, you have no idea when you ask somebody that, how helpful that is to them to realize and recognize, wow, you really care about what I'm going through because you want me to tell you more. I mean, it's kind of as simple as that.
Right. So if you hear your spouse come home complaining about that coworker yet again, ask that question. What is that? So what is that doing to you kind of emotionally?
Right.
How's that making
Yep.
you feel that way?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I
Just dig a
will
little
say,
deeper.
I will be the first to admit, I'm still working on this. I mean, as you all know, when you get emotional, when it starts to poke at you a little bit, the last thing that you feel like you want to do is, repeat back or ask questions for more information. You just kind of want to, like Heather said, you might want to just shut the conversation down or walk away or not deal with it. So it's not easy. But again, active listening is extremely important. And sometimes, real quick, and I'll move on to the next one. We'll joke when we feel like we're not listening to each other, or it's not working. We'll say, hold on a second here. Let's hold the train up. Okay, let me make sure I think, is this what you're saying? And sometimes
Yeah.
that'll actually create a laugh, and it'll be like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just realized we're sort of going off the rails here.
Yep.
So,
There have been times when I feel like Brian is not actively listening to me because he's looking at his phone. We can all say that we've been there over and
that's
over and
right.
over again. And so I will stop what I'm saying because I realize I don't have his attention, and I'll say, "Oh, it's okay. I'll wait till you're done."
Hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. I need to put this down." And so,
That's
I
right.
mean, I might say that a little too snarky, so I need to watch myself on that. He's nodding his head. Yeah, maybe there've been a few times of that.
Yeah,
It's a learning curve for all of us.
that's right.
But we do. We've got to put everything down and just look at each other and listen to what they're saying and allow them to feel heard. Because that goes a long way to feel like your spouse cares about you when you feel like they really hear
Yep,
you.
that's right.
Hmm.
So, what do we do after we active listen? Is there another helpful tip?
Yeah. So I think, we can talk about solutions now, offering some practical help or advice. And, you have to be careful with that because sometimes your spouse may not want that problem solved. Maybe they just want to vent. But in this case, we're going to talk about like, yeah, there's a problem. Let's figure it out together. What can we do together? How can we help each other through this? That's because sometimes that is more what's needed rather than just comforting the person, if that makes sense. So, you need to, after you've listened actively and you've heard your spouse, it's a really good time to kind of identify what is the specific stressor. So, let's go back to that example of your boss is making you angry at work, like there's something not going right there, or maybe it's a coworker that you are just at your wits' end with. Um, what is the stressor there? You're maybe feeling these feelings of anger where you want to punch a wall. Maybe you feel very undermined. Maybe you're stressed out because you don't feel trusted. Maybe your boss is micromanaging you so much that you just feel like, okay, am I a child again? Kind of really get to the root of what that is, other than something beyond my boss is making me crazy, my coworker drives me nuts, kind of a thing. Dig a little bit deeper, find some more specific feelings and emotions there. Um, and then, Brian, you mentioned the word halt. Maybe sometimes these things are coming from a place of being hungry. That's the H in halt. Or angry. That's the A. Or the L is lonely. Maybe you're lonely. Or T, maybe you're tired. Those things can also contribute to the stress that you're feeling. And it's worth it to look into those things too and just decide like, did I not sleep well last night? Is that really what's at the root of this and why I have no patience for these people that I call my friends and coworkers? Maybe I didn't eat and I should have, or what, whatever it is. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, did you want to say something else about that?
I was just going to say, I think too, what I'm sensing you getting at is just having some patience to really dig and understand at what the problem is. One thing that I thought was kind of a neat thing that John Gottman, famous couples researcher, said. He said that if you're hysterical about something, it's probably historical, meaning that if your spouse or you are just completely venting and just your anger has just kind of boiled over about something that you're talking about, there might actually be a lot more going on there than just this thing that happened. Like, for example, you drop a glass and it shatters, and then all of a sudden you just go into a complete rage. Well, it may be a situation where, you know what, I've just had a bad day all day long. People were coming at me, wanting this, wanting that. So if you're patient and you talk about it and you dig around, you might find that that's the case. It's not that, oh, it was this glass and this thing broke and that's what I'm so upset about. So I think that's what I'm getting at. And I think too, um, providing support means just asking questions. I guess I'm kind of saying that as I'm talking, just making sure that you're asking, like, what
Right.
is really happening here? Is it really this situation? Is there anything else that's stressing you out? And then what can we
That's
do
good.
together, right? I mean,
Right.
being
Right. Ways.
collaborative.
Yeah. Ways to provide tangible support. Ask your spouse, what can I do to help you? What is it that you need right now? Do you need to have some time and space for yourself? I can go make sure, like, I will take care of the children. I will take care of dinner. You go take care of yourself, or do you need everyone around you to just love on you? Maybe do you need us to just hang out and watch a movie together? Do you need to cry on my shoulder? What is it that I can do for you right now? And that's such a powerful, sweet moment that you can have in your marriage where you're just meeting each other's needs, and it's okay if one is meeting and the other one is receiving. Like, that's what it's all about. We balance each other out by always having these moments where one is weak and one is strong,
Hmm.
and learning how to be there for each other,
Right.
and just asking, what do you need from me? How can
Yep.
I help you? It
That's
just
good.
goes so far.
Yep.
And then, having a good discussion about that and being willing to say, I will give you what you need right now.
Hmm.
It's okay. If you need some time, fine. I will throw the kids in the back of the car. We are going to go for a drive and you just take a nap, like whatever
Hmm.
it is. There's like those little actions that I hope you're not rolling your eyes at, but those little actions can just go so far in letting your spouse know how much you love and care for them and support them
That's right.
and want them to, improve in their mindset of stress.
That's right. And I
Hmm.
think really what you're talking about is the next tip we
Yep.
wanted to talk about was
Just roll
encouraging
right into
self
that.
care. Yeah, you did a
Yep.
good job of transitioning into that one.
Woohoo.
Self care, I don't know. That's a term that I learned when I transitioned from the corporate world into the counseling that I do. I kept
And you hear it
hearing
all the
this
time after
phrase, yeah,
COVID. Self care, self
right,
care.
self care. It
Yes.
almost sounds it sounds a little
Oh,
selfish or something, but I don't
yeah.
think it really is. I mean, we all work hard. We've got a lot going on with family and jobs and things. And so self care is important. I'll give you one quick example of something that really helps me is running. As long as I'm not, deathly ill and on in bed and I can't get up. Although sometimes I've had situations where I've gone ahead and run anyway when I felt like that, which maybe isn't the best. But I think that is probably one of my number one ways in which I take care of myself. So
You too.
you've maybe even, I don't know if you've had moments where you're like, you probably just want to say, why don't you just get out and run? You need to get out of here.
I might start doing that. Brian, it
Right.
sounds like you need to go for a
Right.
run.
When I start getting snarky and agitated and
Yeah.
upset, Brian, why
It
don't you
might
go
be
for a
might
run?
be 100 degrees outside and I might suggest you go for a run.
Right. That's right. Do you have a self care activity that's like number one on your list that helps you in times of stress?
I'm drawing a blank when I get stressed. What do I do for myself? I don't take baths, y'all, cuz that's just a cesspool of germs. So I don't do that. What do I
You
do?
read, I
I
think.
do. I read books, and you know what? This is what I do. When I get home from work, I love my 20-30 minutes that I have all to myself. The introvert that I am, I'm not much of an introvert, but I am, um, needs that quiet time, that time to just chill out and not do anything. It doesn't matter. Like I can just literally be a slothful, lazy girl, and I'm okay with that. And I feel better because I've had that moment, you know, by myself. So I guess
Hmm.
that's is that self care? I
Yeah, I
mean,
would say
I guess
so.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so the point for you listening is find that one thing or two things or three things that are really helpful to you in moments when you are stressed and try to go to those things if you can. And then you can even participate in things together if you like. Maybe running. I know at this point with Heather, with some of the bone issues and back issues, I know that's become something that you can't really do anymore, but
I'm going to run if a bear is chasing me.
right,
So,
exactly.
but
So,
I love to go for nice leisurely walks,
yeah,
which,
so
yeah.
it could be modified, something
Yes.
together. We did a couples massage one time, although it wasn't really, I don't remember it being a particularly stressful time in our lives. I just thought it would be something fun to do together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that
That
was,
was nice.
yeah, for sure. All right. We have
Yeah.
another tip here. This
Yes,
one kind of goes back to, I think, communication. So we'll
it
jump back to
does.
that a little bit.
It does. Yeah. I mean, so many things in our lives come down to how we communicate. And when someone is stressed, this goes a long way because when we're stressed, we probably say things that things come out of our mouth that are maybe not the way they're intended. And if you're the other person on the other end of that, you're hearing things and they've just said something and you're like, wait, what? And you all of a sudden you're feeling attacked or whatever. I mean, you can see how this will just escalate endlessly and cause some other issues in your marriage that you don't want or need. So,
So
yeah,
what's the tip here?
everything does come back to communication. Express empathy and understanding, and so just validate your spouse's feelings. Watch it watch that you don't say things like, oh, okay, here we go again, or just by not responding. You don't want to be an unresponsive victim either. You want to validate, like, man, I know that must really hurt to feel that way when your boss is undermining you, or your boss is micromanaging you and not letting you be an autonomous worker that you are. That really must, make you feel pretty lousy. I understand that, um, and
Can I jump in on that?
yes,
So, one thing that I've learned about empathy, understanding, validating is it can be very difficult to do because a lot of times we will think about a situation that we were in that's similar and how we handled it differently, we reacted differently. And so then we start to get into this place of like, well, I don't understand why this is such a big deal to you and why did you react this way? But one thing that has helped me, and I hate to say it because it's at your expense, but it's the pain that you've been through with your back. I can't, there's nothing that I can really go to in my own life where I could even fathom and understand what you're going through. So my brain doesn't automatically go to this place of like, well, I've been through this before. I know how this works. And because I really haven't. So the only thing that I have is the ability to just validate and just to have empathy and just try to understand because pain is one of those things for the other person. It's just really hard to know and to understand what's going on. So I hate to say that that's actually helped me give more empathy and learn empathy, but unfortunately it has at your expense. But
well,
I don't know if that makes sense.
it does make sense,
I
and
hate it,
whether
but
it's a physical pain or an emotional pain that, that is causing that stress on you, learning how to be empathetic towards your spouse is super important here. You don't want to dismiss them like their feelings aren't important. You want to validate them. You want them to feel loved, and just be an empathetic, good listening spouse for them.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I was just thinking about in the Bible, doesn't it say that a good word or encouragement is like a soothing balm? for the
Mm-hmm.
soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it
Yeah.
talks about how a tongue can set things aflame and afire. So yeah, so just think about that when you're thinking about how to respond. And with
Yes.
that, do you want me
All
to go
very
to the
good.
next one?
Yep.
All
Go
right.
right in.
So I guess the final tip, number 5, is praying for and with your spouse, and just incorporating prayer as a supportive practice. So whenever you can, if you have moments on your own, pray for whatever they're going through, this stressor, because there's so much in this life, in this world, that we don't have control over. But there is one person that does have control, and that is God. And He asks us to come to Him uh, and, kind of lay things at His feet, so to speak, and that He will take care of us. And then, of
That's
course,
right.
praying together
Right.
is very important. So try as much as you can to just get away from the, well, let's pray at dinner time for the dinner to nourish our bodies, which is good, or which tends to be, the thing that we do, or praying with your child at bedtime. Just try to make it more organic. Do it at random times. Grab your spouse and say, you know what, let's pray about what you're going through right now. You have no idea how
Yeah.
encouraging that would be.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really
And
is.
there's a role that faith plays. I don't know. You want to talk a little bit about faith? We might have talked about this in the last episode about how much faith that we need. Do we need a lot? Do we need 100% faith that this is
No.
going to work out?
We need faith the size of a mustard seed. And a mustard seed is so small, but what I've learned is that the thing that grows from a mustard seed is a massive tree.
Yeah.
Y'all may have known that. Did
Yeah, I
we
think we
talk about
talked
this in
about that
another
in the last
episode?
episode
It
about
still blows
healing.
my mind.
Yeah.
Yes, it still blows my mind that a tree, a strong tree that becomes home and protection and food for animals and shade for you, it, that's what grows from the faith that we can have. So and the other thing is that the roots underground are as large as the treetop. And so, as your faith grows above ground, your roots in God, in Christ, are growing that much stronger. It's just such a cool picture to have,
Mm,
when you think about having faith
yeah.
and having faith that God is going to take care of these external stressors that are happening in your marriage. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the mustard seed. I actually, when we're at church now and I pray for other people, I find myself using that phrase in my prayer quite a bit, because we can oftentimes get so overwhelmed that, oh, I've got to be 100% believing that this is going to happen. And God actually in His Word says, at least with the mustard seed part, that no, you don't. You just have a little bit, and I'll take the rest over. I know you're a human, you're imperfect. There's worry, there's stresses, So yeah, I love that. It helps me feel better when I
Yeah.
know that that's all I really need to have. But
Yeah. It's
again,
good.
just overall with praying, I'm sorry, I don't know if I interrupted you, but
No.
just making sure that you're integrating that into your relationship as much as you can. Find the
Absolutely.
moments and the times, communicate about, maybe for me, maybe mornings are better. Maybe for Heather, evenings are better. Well, then, you got to talk about those things to see when might be the best way in which to incorporate it. So it just comes back to communication. So those are our
Yeah.
5 tips, right?
Yep. 5
All
tips.
right.
Yeah. And just to kind of recap those tips, be an active listener, offer practical help, encourage encourage self-care, express empathy and understanding, pray for and with your spouse. Those are 5 really good tips to help your spouse get through whatever it is that is bringing on that stress that they don't need right now. Um, so just recognize those signs in your spouse, the signs of stress, and learn what that looks like. If your spouse is having a good day versus a not so more stressed out day, learn what those signs are. Take care of yourself in this process and provide that support that they need. And, I do want to say that if you need some professional help, it's out there. Y'all, if you need it for yourself because of the stress or the anxiety, whatever it is that's going on, don't be afraid to get it. Don't be afraid to get it. At one point, we all need help with something, and it takes a stronger person to ask for help than to just brush it under the rug. If you need help in your marriage, again, it takes a strong person, one person to say, hey, you know what? Let's go get some help. Let's get this thing figured out. Go get the help that you need. Yeah.
Yep. That's good. I couldn't have said it any better. And again, this whole episode is really just about support. If you don't hear any other word that you hear, because again, the word stress can just seem so big, so large, so overwhelming. But I think the word support can be even larger, and it can overwhelm the stress, so to speak. So just remember to do that. I don't know if this is in the Bible, but doesn't it talk about how when we think about sorrow, we're able to divide the sorrow between two people, and then happiness, we can multiply the happiness when we've got two people. I don't think that's biblical, is it?
I don't think that's biblical.
Yeah, and I've probably,
oh, man.
as with most things, with most quotes and scripture and things, I usually get it about half right, but I think y'all know what I mean. So it's just important for you two to be on the same page when it comes to these things. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up, right? You got something for them, though, before we wrap up?
I do. So on our website, lovehowdeep.com, we have a free resource for you. We have a number of them. I don't know how many there are, but they are the date night ideas. Oh, Brian's telling me we have 6 date night ideas. So if you have not yet checked those out, we encourage you to do so, because sometimes we can get a little stuck in the rut on a date. What are we doing on our date tonight? We're going to dinner. We're going to see a movie. We're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And maybe you just need that little refresher of like, ooh, we haven't done that in 30 years. Let's go for that walk in the park kind of a thing. So go check those out, because sometimes that time that you spend together can help de-stress each other and just bring more life and joy and fun into your marriage. So please go check out the date night ideas and give those a try.
All right. And with that, we thank you so much for tuning in as always. And we can't say see you next time, right? Because we're doing an audio podcast. So we will.
We're going to talk at you next time.
Yeah, you will hear us next time.
You'll hear us next time. That sounds good.
Take care, everyone.